41st episode of the Have Aloha Will Travel podcast. I am your co-host, Kevin Allen. With me, as always,
Catherine Tothbox, and we're with Hawaii Magazine. Thank you for not saying our annual podcast.
It's our bi-weekly podcast, once every 2 weeks. And we have a very special guest with us today.
We do. Let's say hi to Ed Schultz. Hi, Ed.
Hey, everybody.
Thanks for joining us. So let me introduce Ed for our listeners. So Ed is the president of Hawaii Host Group, or he has been since 2018. And this year you combined titles, right? You're the president and CEO now. Prior to joining Hawaiian Host Group, he was the president and owner of Honolulu Coffee, which really intrigues Kevin, by the way, because Kevin loves Honolulu Coffee Company. They all know him there. Yeah, he's a regular. What I found interesting in reading your bio is that you kind of have a very, it's the background that I would have not expected someone to head up a chocolate manufacturer in Hawaii. Yeah. You worked in banking, and crazily enough, you have an engineering degree from Vanderbilt. What happened?
I fell off the engineering rails early.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. No, it's one of those things. You're 18 years old, and you're like, well, I'm going to university, and got to pick a major, and I had no idea. My love at 18 was football and baseball, and so well, what are you good at? Well, I'm good at numbers. Oh, you should do mathematics. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, engineering. Okay, fine, sounds good. And so I got into I was in the engineering school, and I got into it because I like to design things, and I thought, okay, I did civil structural engineering, and I had a great couple of internships in college. One was working for a sports architecture firm doing, structures for baseball stadiums. So
that's cool.
I thought it would be so cool. And then it was like, oh man, I was designing how to hold up the bathroom on the second level. And then, then I was like, no, okay, maybe not. So I have another passion just about travel and transportation. And so I did another one for a firm that designed high-speed trains, little train sets. And so I was like, well, that's cool. And then I got in there and I was like, these people never saw the outside. It was just like a cubicle farm. And I was like, I just can't do that. So I finished 2 internships and I knew I was in trouble. So I was 21, and then I said, okay, well, I'm good at problem solving. And what do you do banking pays well, and you get to go live in New York City. So, okay, sign me up. And so I interviewed, and I went into banking because, again, I was good with numbers and could problem solve, and I wanted to live in New York, and that seemed like a good fit.
Where are you from, Ed?
I grew up in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. So New York must have seemed like a pretty big city.
I grew up in Massachusetts, pretty rural Massachusetts, but went to school in the South, and then decided to come back to the Northeast. And when you're 23, New York is amazing.
That's a place to be.
Are you a diehard Reds fan then?
The Red Sox. Yeah, I'm a diehard Red Sox, Patriots, Bruins, Celtics. You name it, Boston sports.
Wow, you are hardcore New England.
Hardcore.
My eyes just glazed over.
Games are on at 1:30 in the afternoon. It makes hard to follow.
Or 6 a.m.
Football's actually okay. I got to watch the Patriots this weekend, but baseball, basketball, very difficult to watch in hockey East Coast games.
And now you're the president and CEO of a chocolate company. Where did that? Where is the connecting line between banking and New York?
That makes sense. So it's funny. So post 9/11 in New York, I think we kind of, I got over New York quickly post 9/11, and wanted to go do something else, and so I took a break, and but at that point I had developed a passion living in New York around food, craft retailers, people still making things. And I had learned a lot in banking at a young age. I think that's what was amazing about investment banking is at a young age, you learn a lot of stuff quickly. You work long hours, but it's you get pretty polished with a few things. And so I was able to go out and said, and I'll tell you the quick version of this. decide what else. I wanted to get into wine, so I was going to get into wine, and then I had a very somebody I met who I respect, told me the old story of, how do you make a small fortune in wine? You start with a large one.
Oh.
And so I was like, God, it's not good for me at 30. Better figure out something else. Maybe this is something at 50 I can do. And so but I love beverages. And at that time, it was Starbucks or nothing, right? It was, 2002, and Starbucks was crazy. And we in banking had actually, invested in a few suppliers of Starbucks. I understood it. And so I got into coffee in 2003, and I did that for a long time, but always, loved chocolate, loved any, artisan food, different purveyors, was always passionate about learning. And ultimately, I think like every entrepreneur, who's successful at it, you have to be endlessly curious. And I would just, anybody that wanted to talk. And so chocolate in Hawaii, Mac nuts, beer makers, rum makers, like I love learning what the guys at Kohana are doing. So any of that stuff. And I actually joined the board of directors in 2017 of Hawaiian Host. And I think the board was looking for, somebody had some entrepreneurial background related to consumer products. We had done well in Japan with Honolulu Coffee. We had over 20 stores in Tokyo and Osaka. And I think when you put all that together, they said, come join the board. And, good leaders ask a lot of questions. And so I was asking a lot of questions. And I think a couple of the board members said, we need a CEO transition. Keith had been there for 25 years and was retiring, and said, hey, would you want to come do this? So it was great. I had a 1-year transition with Keith. And so he was president and CEO, and then they split the title. And then, so I took president for a year and then became president and CEO in January, pre-apocalyptic depression disaster.
So I've showed a lot of self-restraint. I mean, this episode, not asking you about Honolulu Coffee Company, which is funny because Kat knows that's the place where I go to run away from my desk.
So there's a Honolulu Coffee Company shop directly across the street from our offices in downtown. Of course, we're not there anymore. And this guy would go so often that he'd walk in and they wouldn't even talk. They just hand him his coffee.
They knew my order. The baristas were so friendly. And you're right, though. It was Starbucks or nothing because it was just Starbucks right next to us. And I didn't want to go to Starbucks anymore because it's such, I don't know. It was much more of a personal experience at Honolulu Coffee Company. And when I went there yesterday and saw that they were temporarily closed, it broke my heart.
I think we just did that. I still own a part of it. And we just did that because, we can all disagree on what our government leaders are doing. But I think the last stay-at-home order really put sort of a nail in the coffin for a while. And so I think we just said, hey, we're going to have to take a break here. It was a small store. And I think in the spring we were open, but, now with schools back in theory in session, there's so many fewer people downtown than there was even all summer long because, now you got to do something with the kids at home and make sure they're actually like doing stuff from distance learning, which is the whole, I feel for a lot of working women. I mean, they now have 2 full-time jobs, right? I mean, it's like the responsibility generally falls on that. And it sucks. I mean, it could set women back for a decade if we don't figure this out of how to get kids back in school, and it's truly unfair. So
yeah, I 100% agree.
You're preaching to Kat. You're preaching to Kat right now. Kat has a. How old is your son?
I mean, okay, so I'm not homeschooling him, but he's like almost 4. But preschools were shut down, and try and deal with a 3-year-old boy running around the house, stir crazy. And, I have to sit in Zoom meetings and write. I mean, it was impossible. So.
Yeah, it's a tough one. And that's why I firmly believe, we need to be back in office spaces. Kids need to be back in schools. I mean, everybody talks about the new normal of working remote, which I I think is a fallacy. I mean, we're not all Google, and we're not all, we've got people that need to collaborate and be in person. And in Hawaii, we don't all have home spaces that are adaptable to the home working either. We got, louver windows, and the yard guy comes, or the neighbor's yard guy comes, and it's like, well, I can't do calls from 1 to 3 on Thursdays, or, we don't have separate rooms in the house where, the working, parents have their offices and the kids have their space. And I mean, it's tough. I mean, this is not,
Now you're preaching to Kevin
Now you're
and his
preaching to me.
300 square foot studio.
I lost my kitchen. It's become my office now. I had to set up my whole desk in my kitchen breakfast nook.
Ed, we did a whole podcast where Kevin was in his bathroom because there was construction going on outside and there was no other place for us to record.
There was no other place. And right when I went into my bathroom, the guys who were right next to my bathroom window started doing yard work. So I was just, there was no escaping it.
Stop it.
Now, with Hawaiian Host being a manufacturer, though, you guys have been able to stay working, right? You guys are still in operation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, we're an essential business per the definition of all these emergency orders. We don't necessarily need to make stuff given the fact that, we have no visitors and local people can't travel and take product, or local people can't get together and share our product. So demand in Hawaii has been a significant challenge for us. And it's been unfortunate. We've tried to keep people furloughed as long as possible. We have had to make layoffs like everybody. And so we've been trying to manage through it. I think back in April, our team did an amazing job coming together quickly and aligning on, who can work from home, how can we do it safely, how can we bring people back safely. So we brought everybody back to the office in May when we felt things were safe, we were an essential business, and people loved it. I mean, we were all back together, but we were doing temperature checks before it was, even a requirement. We had extra hand sanitizing stations put up all over the place. I think we did a great job with it, and people appreciated it. We said, if you had kids, until schools are back in, we're totally flexible. Try and come in if you can, but if not, we understand. And so, we've been selectively making things. We've been really, from summer, really making holiday-specific items that we didn't already have in inventory. So that's been most of our production focus.
Are you talking about these?
Yeah, we made those. That was a new product. That was supposed to launch on March 15th. So it didn't launch on March 15th. It launched in the summer, when we had it together. But that's about the first new product after I came in that the team really worked on. And you can see the overhaul in the packaging. Really, we wanted in that packaging really some nod to, botanical culture of Hawaii and our ag roots with growing macadamias. We used sort of old British botanical illustrations, but tried to make it contemporary and really a great texture to the bag. The bag's got a great feel to it.
It does feel nice. I'll explain to the listeners who maybe not aren't watching our video. These are new pan-coated chocolate-covered macadamia nuts, and there's a variety of flavors. I think the sea salt toffee dark chocolate is one of the newer ones, right?
Yeah. So that one, and then the toasted coconut one, and the matcha.
I already ate the toasted coconut one. Yeah. Anyway, you had mentioned that local people. It's not. I mean, this is something we would buy for gifts, or visitors come, and it's sort of it's kind of an iconic brand for visitors. And I know a lot of our viewers and listeners are really familiar with Hawaiian Host. I, for one, am one of those locals who buy the tray of dark chocolate or chocolate covered macadamias and eat it myself. I do. People know, if you know me, I sit and I'll eat a whole box of it. And I did eat the milk chocolate, the dark chocolate, the Kona Coffee, and the toasted coconut bags already.
They're gone. Well, and so what we meant by those bags is we really wanted to go from a gift to something that was more self-consumption. And we feel like this bag really does that. So this size bag is available here. There's an 8 ounce available in Hawaii. There's a 20 ounce available on the mainland in my club stores at Costco. And then there's a 4 ounce version on the mainland that's meant for grocery or airport shops, like a Hudson News, stores, like a Cost Plus, World Market carries that product in a 4-ounce.
Can you explain the difference? I mean, I think most people are familiar with the box, right?
Yeah.
And these are more premium. And what does it mean to be like hand coated and it's like dusted with powdered sugar?
Yeah. So the best way to describe the ones that go in a box are called enrobed chocolates. So that's almost like walking into a Krispy Kreme. So have you ever been to a Krispy Kreme and watched the glazing?
Yeah.
So same thing happens with the chocolate is we set a bottom layer of chocolate. The nuts are then hand set on top of the chocolate. And then it goes through this curtain or wall of melted chocolate like Willy Wonka. And it has a perforated bottom and it falls through. And so we call those the enrobed. And then it goes on this cooling line. The pan coated is super interesting. The best way I make it for somebody thinking about how you do this at home is we have a giant thing that looks like a chicken rotisserie oven. And so what you do is you throw the nuts in this thing. It tumbles around like a giant, like a dryer. And then you spray chocolate onto it and you blast it with cold air and it sets. And then you add more chocolate and blast it with cold air. And then it slightly gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Do you feel like Willy
and then the
Wonka
other part
sometimes?
is the flavoring is cool because it comes out of more like an artisan kitchen. So what you're trying to do is we bring it into these hot pots, and so we're heating up local honey. So actually, all the honey on the honey glazed ones is actually macadamia tree nut honey. So it's bees that are in the trees.
Oh, wow.
And then Kona Coffee. So we used this coffee purveyor that's great called Honolulu Coffee. And we made a cold brew out of it, and then coated the nuts before we put them into this giant rotisserie. And then lastly, I would say the difference is one leaves this kind of polished, shiny effect, and in this case, all of this product has these different dusted coatings on it. So it has a very different mouthfeel and texture to it than the ones that come out of the box.
How long does it take, like the creative process, I guess, or just the brainstorming, the planning on making these chocolates? Like, how long does that process take? Years?
Yeah, I think it really takes us, if we figured it out, it takes about 15 months to go from idea to grocery floor, outlet floor.
Oh, wow.
It's quite a process, and that's where big companies, it takes longer, and smaller ones, your advantage. The small artisan chocolate guys, they come up with an idea, and in 2 weeks they got boxed and they got a concept. Whereas for us, I think there's a lot of different things that go into. We're big. We're Hawaii's largest consumer products company, but compared to a mainland food company, we're tiny. But we still sell product, all over North America. We have an office in Tokyo, and until COVID hit, we had an office in Singapore.
Wow.
And all of these markets have to be taken into consideration when you look at that and say, what's the right size? What is the market requirements on regulatory? And so that's why some of these things take, a while to get into.
Kevin wants to know what your favorite chocolate is. He does.
Are you a milk chocolate
earlier.
kind of guy or a dark chocolate kind of guy?
You mean like of our line, or you mean just in the world? What's my favorite chocolate?
We'll call it your line of the Hawaiian Host of chocolates.
Yeah, I love our Founders Collection dark. I think it's fantastic. It's the most premium product we make in the dark chocolate line. I actually think that our honey glazed product is the best one we make because I feel like we use local honey and it gives this crunch to the nut that is unbelievable. But then it's got a great chocolate taste on the outside of it. If we're being open and honest and we get past Hawaiian Host, I love Dick Taylor. I think what they do is fantastic out of Eureka, California. And then there's another chocolatier, a good friend called Christopher Elbow, so Elbow Chocolates. So there's a store in Hayes Valley in San Francisco. He's done a line of ice creams with Haagen-Dazs and He's a great, mostly Valrhona chocolate chef. Used to work for Emerald.
Have you always been a chocolate guy, or is it something you've acquired because you work here? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I've always enjoyed chocolate, but I would say I've definitely, my palate has changed over the years, and now definitively sort of in a dark milk. I'm not at 80% dark, but I'm put me in the 60% cacao dark is my sweet spot.
How much chocolate do you eat a day?
This. Huh?
How much chocolate do you eat a day, roughly?
Who, me?
Both of you. I want to see if Kat eats more than you.
Yeah, here's the difference between, I realized this quickly when I put on the Hawaiian Host 10 pounds, with the Starbucks mandatory. You all these other things you do, and you can spit, right? So it's like you get into wine and you're like, well, you don't become an alcoholic because you can spit. You get into coffee and you don't become caffeine addicted because you do coffee cuppings and you can spit. With rum, beer, whatever it is, there's no spitting chocolate. Like, it goes in and it's going down.
You got to eat it. You got to burn those calories later.
You got to burn those calories. Yeah. The other way, you can just give them back. This is you got to burn them. So,
this is why I don't work for a chocolate company or an ice cream company or a potato chip company.
Yeah, ice cream is the same way. Chips, you're right. All these things, or beverages can come back, but all these other food things are hard. So, my wife was like, "Here's great, got a new job. Here's your dog. Go run the dog."
Yeah, walk the dog now.
That's my control, my weight loss control.
It must have been interesting to kind of take over the helm of Hawaiian Host, which has been around for 80 plus years, and is this really set in brand Hawaii brand that everyone knows.
Yeah.
Was it maybe challenging to, or you don't want to mix or screw with the formula too much because obviously it's been working for 80 plus
right.
years. Was it ever challenging or scary to really be like, hey, let's do this, or let's think outside of this box?
Yeah, I mean, every day, it's but I think what we what we have to do is make both of the brands, Hawaiian Host and Mauna Loa, when I tell people, I mean, we have to make them relevant for the next 50 years. Hawaiian Host has been around since 1927. And as I say, I've said this before, I mean, I love them because they're two of Hawaii's oldest, most heritage brands. There's a very famous Gustav Mahler quote that, he'll say, tradition is about the preservation of the flame, not the worship of the ashes. And so I think you got to look at it this way, is that you can't be so afraid that, you're going to do something wrong or alienate somebody. I mean, we've got great brand strength. Our customers will come along, but we've got to make them relevant. And so, how you consume product changes. And so, for example, what the product that Kat just had was one of my first trips. I went to go see our team in Asia. I went to Singapore. I met our big distributor there who handles all the airports. We're in Changi Airport in Singapore. We're in Hong Kong. We're in Bangkok, and we do great volumes in these airports. And he said, I said, what are we missing? And he said, well, you guys, 25 years ago when we started working, everybody only did boxes. And now the chocolate world has changed. So boxes or gifts are a third of the market, even in an airport. A stand-up bag that's self-consumption is a third of the market, and then kids is a third of the market. And that got me thinking, well, we don't have to alienate the people who eat them in boxes. We just got to start addressing the segments of the market that we haven't taken on. And so that's where that new product came from. It wasn't meant to take away from other stuff. It was meant to grow what we were doing, yet still rely on, the macadamia nut as our hero, and make sure we made a great product for a new group of customers or consumers.
I'm curious about, you mentioned earlier, because you have different markets, the mainland market, you have the Asia market, and then the local market. Are there different flavors or different products that you have in these different areas that are unique?
Yeah, absolutely. So, here locally, I mean, our classic milk chocolate is by far the best seller. I think it was made with a creamy, but very sweet. There's a decent amount of sugar in our formulation for milk chocolate. I think we see on the mainland the market shifting definitely toward dark, and more of a less sugary, more health and wellness focused sort of belief in what we're eating. And you go in Asia, the palate there is still very milk chocolate, but it is by far less sweet. So they want it milk and creamy with not as much sugar. And so we have products that just address these different segments. And yeah, we try to keep those in focus of what we're doing. And we're coming out in January. We're launching, like, the matcha product is a great example. So we have matcha here that's fantastic. People like it locally, but in Asia, people don't really love our matcha. And so in Japan, we've actually partnered with Itoen to use their matcha. And in January, we'll launch a co-branded product made for the Japan market that is heavier matcha content, less sugar, in a very different palate taste, although it's still, Hawaiian. It's macadamia nut and white chocolate mixed with matcha.
Oh, that's interesting. And I know you've only been, CEO for these past few years, but are there any other new initiatives that you've pushed or maybe have started during your time, or is this kind of your first big real?
No, I mean, I think we came in and said, look, we need a, the opportunity is huge. And we're very careful when we're going to take on existing product and redesign it. But then we're also finding, what we're going to do to add new products. So Hawaiian Host will launch in November another line called our Coho label. Coho label will be our ultra premium chocolates. There'll be a series of bonbons.
Oh.
And so totally different product, not an enrobed nut. It'll have things like macadamia praline as the center, then mixed with different things. So we'll have a macadamia praline that's got coconut in it. We've got a macadamia praline that's got lilikoi. So we'll have lilikoi, coconut, plain macadamia praline, Kona Coffee, sea salt. So those will launch in November.
Well, you definitely got your first customer. I saw a cat's face lighting up when you were talking.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Wait, so you're launching this in November of this year?
Of this year, yeah. And for now, it'll be exclusively an online e-com product. Our website is going to get an overhaul October the 1st, so it'll be a brand new e-commerce shopping experience. And we're bringing fulfillment back from the mainland. We used to fulfill off the mainland, but we wanted to create jobs here in Hawaii. So we're pulling all of our e-commerce packaging and shipping origination out of here, and we'll do it out of eBelay.
I was going to ask, is this big e-commerce push? I mean, like, I know a lot of businesses locally, since COVID, they've made huge e-commerce pushes, and a lot of people are redesigning their websites and making more virtual storefronts. Is this kind of a response to the pandemic?
Yeah, we did I think back in April, we brought together the top 15 people in the company, and essentially we broke the team down into 4 different groups. One was discovery, which was like, somebody's got to tell us everything we need to know about COVID. One was the design team that said, what do we need to do to design things that will fit? And so this group kind of came up with a list, and overhauling e-com is one of them. And then, we got to implement and then, kind of go forward and decide what we want to do. And this was the project that we felt made it. The Mauna Loa website just relaunched a week ago. So it's a brand new website, a much better shopping experience again. And then you asked about new products. I want to talk about this because I think it's super interesting. So we took and said, on the Mauna Loa side, we really need to separate the 2 brands together, or apart, from, they were too closely aligned before. And so Mauna Loa, I think, will relaunch in January as Hawaii's premier plant-based food company. And so in January launches our non-dairy ice creams made from macadamia nut milk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and the response has been fantastic. So I think, Safeway here is the first retailer grocery that'll pick it up. It'll be in store in February. There's about 500 Albertson Safeway stores on the mainland from San Francisco up through Seattle that will have them in time for Christmas. And so the idea is, really changing Mauna Loa to be a health and wellness brand that's about you and about what makes you happy. And we really want Hawaiian Host to be the more indulgent brand that is about sharing. How does it make, the whole family, it's more about ohana and aloha than it is about, my own kind of, as we say internally, our Mauna Loa is more about mana, and Hawaiian Host is more about aloha and ohana.
Wow.
Awesome.
Lots of news. I was taking notes, Kevin.
Yeah,
we got
tons of stuff coming.
We got articles in the hopper now too. Well, shoot.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks, Ed.
We've got samples of the ice cream. We'll give you samples of the ice cream.
Send those right over to Kat.
Our favorite flavor is the Rocky Road to Hana. So the Rocky Road to Hana is like a rocky road, except it's got mac nuts and coconut in it, in place of the other typical, traditional inclusions.
I mean, twist my arm.
If you have to. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ed. This has been a really wonderful talk. And Kat, do you want to do the shout outs for today? Our end of show?
I can, but if you guys want more information about Hawaiian Host, where can people find your products? HawaiianHost.com and Mauna Loa?
MaunaLoa.com. And we're available at e-com, many groceries on the mainland, obviously here in Hawaii, almost everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly. Canada might be a little tougher. I know London Drug carries our product. They're the top Canadian customer.
Might be in that same town that we're talking about.
That might be that 50 of you are watching us from. Well, we'll put this information in our show notes for all of you who are interested. You can you guys ship to the mainland, obviously. Uniqlo also has your new T-shirts, right? Available.
Oh yeah, that was a great collab there. Yeah.
You know who's also in Uniqlo? Available. Me. I'm a model for their collared shirts, and I'm still up there. Anytime anyone talks about Uniqlo, I have to mention that.
Sad but true.
It's sad but true.
Find our podcast on any platform that streams podcasts and subscribe and like us. You can also find us on all social media platforms at Hawaii Magazine. And of course, we're really happy to have you, Ed. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
And I am looking forward to some macadamia nut ice cream.
Awesome. Soon. Thank you guys for having me.
All right. Thank you so much, Ed. And thank you all for listening. Aloha.
Okay. See you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.